Hey everyone, Rich Gasway here. Just a quick reminder that all the SA Matters show episodes are now available on YouTube, in addition to iTunes, Stitcher Radio, and Google Play. Some of the guests I interview for near-miss events have video clips that they want to show and share with you, and it just wasn't working out to do that in an audio-only format. So now we're posting all the episodes on YouTube. Before I kick off today's show, I want to take a moment to talk about the live virtual training that is now available. How does that work? Well, for agencies that might not be able to afford to host a live classroom event, I'll come to your organization live via the internet to train your entire team on situational awareness and high-risk decision-making processes. It's sort of like a webinar, but it's only live, real-time, where we actually talk to each other in a classroom, except over the internet. For less than $1,000, you can train your entire team on situational awareness. Virtual training is truly the easiest and most affordable way to train your team on this important topic. If you want to learn more about live virtual training, just visit the samatters.com website and click on the orange box on the right side of the homepage labeled Virtual Training Programs. If you want to talk to me about how this program can be incorporated into your training schedule, just click the Contact Us tab and I'll give you a call. Okay, that's enough announcements. Roll that SA Matters show intro. Today's episode is sponsored by Midwest Fire. For more than 20 years, Midwest Fire has been manufacturing high-quality tankers, tanker pumpers, and fire rescue vehicles in the United States and Canada. Keeping firefighters safe while enhancing their capabilities is what they do best. To learn more, go to MidwestFire.com.
This is firefighter Lionel Crowther from the Winnipeg Fire Department, and you're listening to Dr. Richard Gasway on SA Matters Radio. The SA Matters mission is simple. They want to help us see the bad things coming in time to avoid bad outcomes.
Hello and welcome to episode 215 of the Situational Awareness Matters show. I'm your host, Rich Gasaway. The purpose of this show is to improve situational awareness and decision making for individuals and teams who work in high risk, high consequence, time compressed environments with changing conditions. The SA Matters mission is simple: to help you see the bad things coming in time to avoid bad outcomes. I've been sharing the message of situational awareness and high-risk decision-making at conferences and for individual organizations for 13 years now, and have trained just over 66,000 students, including first responders, industrial workers, military personnel, business leaders, medical professionals, utility workers, aviation workers, oil refinery operators, and more. This message truly is for anyone who works in a high-risk, high-stress environment. I'm dedicated to improving your safety and your survival, and I'm here to offer you a message of hope and a message of inspiration, and to help you accomplish the most important goal of all, and that's to go home to the ones who love you. And speaking of sharing the message, today I'm coming to you from my office in St. Paul, Minnesota. I'm home to spend a few days with my family and to celebrate my son's graduation from high school before heading off to Nevada to present at the Fire Rescue Med Conference. This is my first time at Fire Rescue Med, so I'm really excited for the opportunity to meet some new people and to make some new friends. In today's feature segment, it's part 2 of a 2-part interview with a near-miss survivor who thought he was going to a small electrical fire that turned out to be a whole lot more than he bargained for. In fact, if circumstances were just slightly different, it could have easily killed him. But before we get into the interview, I want to take just a moment to talk about the Supervisor Development Institute. Some of you know that my second passion after situational awareness is developing the leadership skills of supervisors, something I didn't do a very good job of when I was a boss. I was guilty of promoting supervisors before they were prepared to lead, and that was my fault. And then I'd get frustrated at them when they didn't provide good leadership to their team or they were challenged in resolving personnel issues. And that was my fault too. So I created the Supervisor Development Institute. This program is customized to run anywhere from 2 days to 5 days, and no matter what the length is, there's no PowerPoint. Did you hear that? There's no PowerPoint. Can you imagine a week-long class that doesn't use PowerPoint? How's that even possible? Not only is it possible, but it is a better way to learn the skills essential to good leadership. When adults are engaged in the process of learning and not just being lectured to, the learning can be fun. And the important part is, the lessons stick. This program shares practical, actionable best practices for leadership, problem solving, conflict resolution, teamwork, communications, motivation, accountability, generational leadership, discipline, coaching for performance improvement, and more. If you want to learn some more about this program and how to teach your supervisors a different way to lead and a better way to hold employees accountable, contact me. One of the questions I get asked a lot by readers of my blog and listeners and viewers of this show are, when are you coming to my area? I want to attend a program. Or where are you going to be next? Great questions. And I've made it really easy for you to find out the answer. There's a link on the homepage of the SA Matters website for the upcoming events. Just click that blue box on the right side of the homepage labeled Live Training Dates. Okay, today's feature segment is part 2 of my 2-part interview with Chicopee Fire Department Deputy Chief Dave Beauregard. On May 15, 2015, Chief Beauregard responded to a report of an electrical fire that was told to them by dispatch to already be out at an industrial facility on Meadow Street in Chicopee, Massachusetts. Chief Beauregard discusses how his complacency contributed to a near miss, that if the circumstances were just slightly different, it could have killed him. Now, this is part 2 of the interview, so you might want to go back and listen to part 1. But if this is your first listen to this, I want to start off by just sharing a little bit of the backstory as to how we get led up to what will now be part 2. So let's join my interview with Chief Beauregard. In part 1 of my interview, Chief Beauregard, who was at the time a captain, so Captain Beauregard, was involved in an incident that was a very significant near miss. I want to set up the incident by talking a little bit about his department makeup, the demographics of his city, and the special circumstances of the facility that he responded to, a Callaway golf ball manufacturing plant. So let's just pick up a little bit of the backstory.
A city of approximately 56,000. We provide an EMS service of 2 basic ambulances. We run 6 stations, 6 fire engines, 2 ladder trucks. We staff our, each shift has 35 members, 1 deputy chief, and usually 3 captains on shift. We have 4 deputy chiefs, 1 per shift. I'm a 5th deputy. I am the executive officer for the department. It's an old mill town. We have everything that ranges from heavy mill construction to current lightweight. We have 2 rivers that come through the community. We have the Connecticut River and the Chicopee River. So we have water rescue issues. We have, geographically, in the center of our community is the largest Air Force Reserve base in the country, Westover Air Force Base, which is 2,500 acres.
All right. So a little bit after midnight, how does the call come in? What are they reported as?
Call comes in as we had alarm sounding at Callaway Manufacturing. They manufacture golf balls at this facility. Um, they said that they had gotten some phone calls that it was an electrical fire, but the fire was out.
Dave went on to explain that this facility used to be the world headquarters for Spalding, and they used to make a lot of different sporting goods at this facility. But now the facility is only used for manufacturing golf balls for Callaway. And Dave said that process is a very complex and dangerous process. He said there's a lot of chemicals, polymers, oxidizers, and plastics used in the creation of a golf ball, and that this type of facility can bring some special challenges for the fire department. So Dave is met at the front door by the night shift supervisor. He doesn't seem too worked up about things, and he says, we've had a electrical fire, but we've got it extinguished, and he's going to escort Dave back to where the fire was. Essentially, Dave's thinking, all right, so I can see what it was and make sure it's out and gather the information for the report. But he's definitely of the mindset that this is really no big deal.
We have okay, not a big deal. My radio, the responding units, this is what we got. We're going in investigating. We have a policy that, you call out what side is going to be the A side, specifically for these kind of situations.
Mm-hmm.
But, I'm just going in to investigate something that's already out. So this is no big deal. It's an electrical fire. And he also told me that he already shut down the electrical power to it. So this is no big deal. It's electrical. They disconnected the energy, and it's already out. Just going to take a look at it. So this is really when it starts to go bad.
So Dave says that he and his fellow firefighters start to walk down a long corridor with the night shift manager. And he says he's not really paying attention to how far in they're going or what direction they're going. In fact, Dave says he thinks that they're heading in the direction of the D side of the building, which he says later on is going to come back to be an important part of the story. And he says, so they're walking along, and the manager is saying, we had a problem. It started around 9 o'clock tonight.
What happened? He goes, yeah, it started about 9 o'clock, and we had some issues, but okay, great, not a thing.
We think we've got it out, but it's been going on for a couple, 3 hours, so we figured we'd just have the fire department come and check it out.
So I'm just chit-chatting, and I'm not paying attention to what's around me because there's really no reason to. I'm just going in there. Now, this was also a building that we knew we had radio transmission problems in, just because of the way the building was built. This was a known issue.
It's important to acknowledge here that Dave knows that they don't have radio communications from inside that building. As they're trying to communicate out, no one's answering. Dispatch or the other units on the scene or the chief officer that's responding. But all the while, he just continues on, moving his way in to the area where the problem is. So what Dave is able to figure out after interviewing the night shift manager is that the fire is actually in an oven. And when Dave gets there, there's some flames in the oven, and they knock it down with an extinguisher, and Dave decides he's going to close the door on the oven, and there's two latches, a bottom latch and a top latch. And he figures if he closes the oven, he'll keep the fire contained within the oven. So Dave decides he's going to shut the door and try to keep it contained within that unit. So he closes the door and he latches the bottom latch, and then he reaches up to latch the top latch, and it won't latch. Something's wrong. It's malfunctioning. Something. the top latch isn't working.
So I kind of turned my back to radio the deputy what we have. You need to send, start some more units till we figure out what's going on.
So after he radios for some more help, he looks back at the cabinet and he sees some flame coming out of the top corner of the cabinet. He decides he needs to close the top latch on that door and try to get it to stay closed.
Try to relatch that top latch. And that's when that whole oven exploded. And the best way I describe it, it was with such force and violence, it threw me across the room. It probably threw me about 5 or 6 feet. A little both. I was injured.
So Dave ended up getting transported to the hospital with bruised ribs and a bruised kidney. And he says he was fortunate because had he just fallen differently and fallen backwards on his bottle instead of more on his side, that the injuries would have been much more significant. And then the incident was completed, and they called in the state fire marshal's office to investigate. And what they found out that was going on there was actually pretty interesting.
It was an R&D, research and development. They were experimenting with some byproduct of the process, and they were drying this byproduct to see what qualities they could get. And apparently the byproduct was actually what caught on fire inside the oven. One of the fire investigators, when they brought in the scientists that night, they brought the people that actually were conducting the experiments. Apparently one of the arson investigators grabbed a pinch of this powder that was in there, held it underneath a lighter, and then dropped it, and it exploded.
Dave said one of the things that contributed to the challenge of this incident was when he pressed the night shift manager for information about what was in that oven. The night shift manager simply didn't know. It was a secret process, and the night shift manager was given just very limited information, enough to just oversee the process, but he really didn't know what was going on inside that oven.
The person that was supposed to be monitoring it was not aware of what was actually in there, because again, it's a very secretive process. So they just said, hey, just make sure that it stays between this temperature and this temperature, and that's pretty much, write down some numbers, and that's pretty much what he knew. He knew it was an electrical oven, and that's what he was trying to relay to me is, it's an electrical oven, and he turned off the electricity to it. What he also turned off was the exhaust fan.
With the exhaust fan turned off, the smoke that was building up inside of that oven was pressurizing the oven, and there was nowhere for the smoke to go. Dave then goes on to tell us what might have happened if that top latch had not malfunctioned.
On top, had it not been faulty, and I had been able to latch it, that oven would have overpressurized, and that could have been catastrophic. Maybe not even to me, but the following crews that would have come in, because the latch that did latch was a steel latch and a steel door, and that completely blew off, and they found that across the room. It completely blew off the oven door. So again, we were very fortunate that it was a defective a door, because it could have been far worse. Again, it may not have even been with me, but the incoming crews. So that was really tough to think about.
I bet.
Because there was a lot of things, just my complacency and just being careless, jeopardized a lot of people. And again, I'm not new to this environment, the high tempo, high risk environment. I was in the Navy and I worked on a flight deck carrier. I worked on the flight deck, and complacency kills. That has been drummed into me since the age of 18. And it's so insidious how it can just creep in. And that's exactly what happened. I was like, yeah, you know what? We've been here. We've done this.
In your interview, Dave was being really tough on himself about his complacency in this situation. And I asked him if perhaps the casual nature of the night manager and the way that he was approaching what was happening might have contributed to Dave letting his guard down, because the night manager didn't seem to believe that there was really anything of any significance or any concern happening.
At first, that was my major justification, because I think that anytime you find yourself in a situation where something goes wrong, I don't think you want to admit a lot of times your own shortcomings. And I did at first. Well, if he had done this, but then I looked at it and said, hey, you know what? I played a part in this as well. There were things here that, had I done a better job of seeing what was around me, when I saw you speak at the command and staff course, and the things that you were talking about, I was like, yep. If I just, because when you have accidents like that, it's a series of events, and at any time I could have, say, hey, wait a second, this is the alpha side. Didn't do that. We got radio transmission problems. Okay, we could have adjusted for that. There was a lot of things where I should have, and I could have, at any moment say, hey, you know what? Let's stop the chain right here.
It's funny how hindsight gives us such perfect vision of the things we coulda, shoulda, or would have done. And I asked Dave, would you have done anything differently?
Yeah, I'd probably call for help earlier. I would have called for another engine. I would have called for engine 8 earlier. And then as time went on and I started thinking more and more about it, and then, okay, what you should have done, and then I started thinking about all the things that if I had done this or I had done that, it would have probably changed, or at least minimized the outcome. And
what are some of those things? Now that you've had time to reflect and apply your hindsight view, what are some of those things that, if you could wind the clock back and have a do-over, that you might consider or think about or do differently?
Well, first thing was, follow the process. Okay. Yeah. Even though that building has no doors, no windows, it is our policy that if you're not going to use it at the street side of that building, it's our policy to say, hey, you know what? I'm declaring this the alpha side. Going in, transmitting, okay, this is where we're going. Paying a little more attention to where we're actually going instead of, just, hey, how's it going? What have you had tonight? When did it start? Oh, really paying attention to the surroundings, and not realizing when it was too late that we're in the center of the building, because we walked a long way. So I said, get to this big room with the door, we must be at the end of the building, and not realizing that we're right in the middle. I probably would have communicated better with the deputy, found an area that we were able to communicate better. Probably tried to get a better understanding once we realized it wasn't an electrical panel.
Dave said his community has a lot of facilities with various types of hazardous materials, and they're very accustomed to responding to those emergencies and dealing with those problems. But most of the time, or nearly all of the time, the employees have a good idea of what the chemicals are and what the processes are, which just wasn't the case in this particular instance.
We're not strangers to hazmat incidents and understanding that, what they do at these plants, we really need to pay attention. And that falls on me. That was my fault, that I took it too casually, understanding what is actually going on in the building, because I think that, I fall sometimes into the same mindset of a lot of people. Well, it's just a golf ball, and not really realizing that there's a lot of hazardous materials. That's why they can fly so far, is that what they use actually causes, a little explosion going on in there. So.
Yeah, you don't really think about it. I mean, I don't think about it. I think, a golf ball, it's got a plastic sort of cover on the outside with some rubber bands wound up on the inside, and how dangerous, could it be? But the unfinished product before it's a golf ball is sounds like it's a very potentially volatile process. Now, coupled with the fact that you were saying that they were experimenting with something, did that supervisor know that was some R&D work going on? Did he say anything to you like, I don't know what's going on in there. There's things they don't tell me. All I was told was just make sure the oven doesn't get too hot or too cold. Did he let on anything like that?
No. We, he just, again, we were just talking, and as we're walking up, no, it's an electrical fire. And, I shut down the electricity. So again, I let myself believe, you don't see the forest through the trees. Oh, it's just an electrical. So I just assume it's got to be an electrical panel. It's an electrical fire. He's telling me it's an electrical fire. It's got to be an electrical panel. And he shut down the electricity to itself. Yeah. This is going to be easy. I'm going to, verify, get some information, go back, do my report, and jump back in the sack. And it was an interesting story. About a month later, my daughter was working as a waitress about a town about 25 miles away. And some golfers came in, and they were asking her if she golfed. And she said no. And they said, but if you did, you'd golf at Callaway, right? And she says, no. She goes, they almost killed my daddy. One of the guys was the guy that was there, that supervisor. And he said, oh my God. He goes, that was your father?
Oh my goodness.
He goes, I thought he was dead.
Huh. How old's your daughter?
Now she's 25. I think at the time she was 22.
Wow.
So she had to go on the back and cry.
Oh my God.
She had heard. The only reason I actually remember the exact date is because I've had I can't say a lot. I've had a few close calls, and I learned early in my career not to come home and talk to my wife about them, because she, it would bother her. So I'd keep it from her. And one time I kept it from her, and we had a firefighter's ball, and guys came up and they started talking to me about it, the incident in front of her. And that bothered her. So I had to kind of, I would ease it to her. So my daughter says, my wife comes home, and obviously the hospital had called her, or the department had called my wife to let her know something had happened. And, but they wouldn't get into too specific. So when my wife came home from work, she said, okay, what happened? And my daughter had already heard the story. And she said, Mom, you don't want to know. And she says, no, I'd rather hear it now than hear it at the next firefighter's ball. My daughter says, well, it's Cinco de Mayo. I said, why don't I make you a drink first before you listen to what happened? And that's why I'll always remember it happened on May 5th, because,
now, when it was all done,
mm-hmm.
and they did the investigation, and they determined that when they turned the electricity off, it also turned the blowers off. At any time did you go like, the blowers? I didn't quite think, when the electricity goes off, so does the ventilation. Did you kind of like have any like light bulb moment, like if it wasn't venting, then the smoke was building up in there in a process that was still heating product? Did that ever come to you as to, why didn't I think about the blowers not running? Did that ever?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I was like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. Why wasn't I even thinking that, because again, this was, in the middle of the factory. Of course they would need to vent it. It wasn't like it was at an outside wall, and even then it would still need to. I was like, why wasn't I, but again, my mind was going in a different direction. So when the whole thing was going on, wasn't thinking it, but then afterwards everything kind of goes through your mind, and and you say, oh, I should have done this. Why wasn't I thinking that? And
Dave said his department has turned over about a third of their members in the last 3 years due to retirements. And he makes sure that he shares the lessons of this incident with the new firefighters coming in. He's also had the opportunity to travel around his region and present a class on this incident. And I asked him, what lessons do you share with people about the things that happened to you and your takeaways?
Rapid intervention. One of the things that I think that has some power in and of itself. When I tell them, and I've been on a job at that time for 21 years, and I've been in a lot of situations, and I've seen quite a few things. We're a very busy department, and it happened to me. I said, I teach rapid intervention. And it happened to me. All the things that, you learn. I've been to, I can't even tell you, hundreds of classes, because this is my chosen career field. This is my profession. This is what I'm proud to do. I want to be the best I can be at doing this. And it happened to me. I would suggest you cannot ever let your guard down, because in a split second, it could affect your life forever. When I told you that we border Springfield to the north, and Springfield is the largest community in our area, in the Pioneer Valley. And so we'd always get, compared to them, we're slow. We still do about 5,000 calls a year compared to them. And so even I would hear, well, how dangerous? You're not that dangerous. They don't have to worry about it. And I would say to them, I said, okay, tell me, how many fires does it take to kill you? How many fires do I have to go to? I said, because if you're going to tell me that at this number, this is the fire that's going to kill you, that's the one I'm not going to go to. I said, but you can't tell. So you don't know which one it is. So you have to be prepared for them all. And at that moment, I allowed carelessness and I allowed complacency to not only affect me, but to affect those around me. Affect my family, affect those I worked with, affect my friends. Because at that moment, I decided to take a mental break and say, you know what? Been here before. It's not that big of a deal. It's just an electrical fire. All right, let's get this over with so, we can get back into service.
You had mentioned in another part of the interview that this industrial facility was really just around the corner from the fire station. And the fact that the call came in just a little bit after midnight and they were already in bed, I asked him if the quickness of the response and perhaps not having enough time to mentally ramp up and prepare for what they were responding to could have had some effect on his mental alertness or his level of vigilance.
Absolutely, especially in that neighborhood, because we have in New England what we call three-deckers, 3 families stacked on top of each other. We have, 6-family, 3-story apartment blocks. We have, again, 1 block away from our firehouse is a chemical plant that, we're on top of. Even when we go to those kind of places in the middle of the day or in the morning when you're fresh, and those can be stressful. Those can be, because you do not have time, even though mentally you've prepared for them or you have some sort of preparation and you know what to do. Every fire is different. Every situation is different. And when you're getting that call and you're right on top of it without being able to fully process what you're getting into is extremely difficult. And certainly that played a part into it. That wasn't, there was some carelessness and there was complacency on my part, but certainly the time of day certainly played a factor into it. The fact that we were right on top of this, again, our response time was about 30-something seconds.
Yeah, I had somebody that I was doing a program for, and we were at their fire station, and literally across from their fire station was this building that had sustained a significant amount of fire damage. So, it always brings up the opportunity to say, how does a building right across the street from the fire station end up, as damaged as heavily as this building was when you have on-duty staffing, were they out on another call? Or he said, Rich, you wouldn't believe it. He said, we've got dash cams and we had some, video from buildings around. He says, for the first 5 minutes on the scene, maybe 10 minutes, he said it was like they were walking asleep. He said they just didn't seem to be mentally engaged in what they should be doing. Like if this were 10 minutes away and they had to pull in and lay their lines, and he said literally when they put the bay doors up, the glow was right in front of them. And he said it was he said it was not a pretty performance. And he said the only thing we can attribute it to is they didn't have time to do mental processing and, that thinking that you go through of, all right, if I get on a scene and if it's this, I'll do this. And if it's this, I'll do this. And maybe it'll be this. I mean, you literally got up. They're seeing the glows. They're putting their turnout gear on. That's, and I just wondered if, something like that is from your experience, something that you guys, or that you personally have found a challenge.
Oh, absolutely. And I've had fires like that where you're so on scene and you almost become paralyzed just trying to figure out, okay, because you're still trying to process as you're rolling up, and all of a sudden you're there, and now you're in mid thought process of one way, and then all of a sudden you're there.
It takes a lot of courage to share a story like this, and to admit your complacency, and to realize that if circumstances were just slightly different, you might have a more catastrophic outcome. I want to thank Dave Beauregard for sharing his story over these last 2 episodes, and also want to encourage anybody who has experienced or witnessed a near miss to reach out to me through the SAMatters.com website. Click on the Contact Us tab and get a hold of me. I'd love to interview you and give you a platform to share your story and your lessons learned. I'd like to share a piece of feedback that I received from a participant in the SA Matters Online Academy. For those who may not be familiar with the Online Academy, it's 14 courses that someone can take over a 6-month period to learn just about everything that they would need to know about situational awareness and high-risk decision-making. So this feedback comes from Donald Wilson, a station officer in Queensland Fire and Emergency Services. So he said, I really believe that what you're teaching is life-saving advice, and I'm going to be recommending the course for all fire managers in my organization. Thank you, and keep up the good work. Well, thank you, Don, for that feedback. If you want to send me some feedback, just click on the Contact Us tab on the top of the SA Matters homepage. As I always do, I want to take a moment to thank the companies and the organizations that have hosted some recent Situational Awareness Matters tour stop events. I do this to show my appreciation to those who put forth the time and the effort to organize, advertise, and fund training for their team members. Recent tour stops have included Georgia Pacific Corporation in Madison, Georgia, Temperature Specialists in St. Francis, Minnesota, the iWomen's Conference in Tysons Corner, Virginia, and the New Brunswick Fire Chiefs Association in Fredericton, New Brunswick. Upcoming Situational Awareness Matters tour stops include June 13th, Fire Rescue Med in Henderson, Nevada, July 6th, Kansas Gas Company in Overland Park, Kansas, July 9 to 11, Georgia Pacific OSB Facility in Hosford, Florida, July 14-15, the Ohio Fire Chiefs Association Conference in Columbus, Ohio, July 19 through 27, Syncrude Oil Refinery, Fort McMurray, Alberta, August 3 and 4, Evansville Fire Department in Evansville, Indiana. August 9 and 10, Fire Rescue International in Dallas, Texas. August 11 and 12, Northwest Fire District, Houston, Texas. August 13 through 16, Missouri City Fire Department in Missouri City, Texas. August 18, Waukee Firefighters Association, Des Moines, Iowa. August 21 through 24, back at Syncrude Oil Refinery in Fort McMurray, Alberta. If you're interested in seeing the locations of all the upcoming Situational Awareness Matters tour stop events, you can head over to the SA Matters website and click on the blue box on the right side of the homepage labeled Live Training Dates. The program schedule is always changing, so check back often. If you're interested in hosting a Situational Awareness Matters tour stop event, just swing by the website and click on the Contact Us tab. There are already over 80 events scheduled for 2018, and I'm scheduling programs for 2019 as well. There's really only a handful of dates available yet in 2018, so if you're interested, contact me right away. If you're interested in hosting a companion program, which is a program on an adjoining day to another program, that's a great way to save some money. You can save as much as 20% off of the program cost by not having the travel expenses to have me come to just your department. I'm already in the area, so that's a good way to do that. Just click on the Contact Us tab, and I have some great staff that'll set things up for you and make it really easy. If you're inspired to learn more best practices for improving situational awareness and high-risk decision-making and want to get connected with me and the mission here, there are several ways you can do that. There are over 75,000 people connected here through the newsletter membership, podcast subscriptions, YouTube subscriptions, and followers on our social media feeds like the Facebook page, Twitter, and LinkedIn. It's through these channels that we share ideas about how to improve situational awareness, how to make better decisions under stress, and how to improve the skills of critical thinking and resilient problem solving. All right, let's start with the newsletter. It's completely free. The newsletter will come to you by email once a month, and it contains featured content from more than 400 articles on the SA Matters blog and from more than 200 podcasts on the SA Matters show, and from more than 300 videos on the SA Matters TV YouTube channel. And occasionally in the newsletter, I'll offer subscribers special discounts on books, videos, virtual training, online academy, and even live events. Those specials are exclusively for the newsletter subscribers. The newsletter truly is the best way for us to stay in touch with each other. And there are two ways you can subscribe to the newsletter. First, if you're in the U.S. and you have a smartphone, you can text SA Matters to 22828. That's the letter S as in Sam, the letter A as in Adam, and the word matters all together as one word, SA Matters, to 22828. Watch your autocorrect because it might try to change SA Matters to something else. If you do it right, you get a text message back on your phone to enter your email address. And once you've done that, you're signed up for the newsletter. It's that simple. Now, I know some of you don't have smartphones, or you don't like to do the texting thing, or you're located outside the United States. In that case, you can just swing by the SAMatters.com website and click on the red box on the right side of the homepage that says Free Membership. You can subscribe to the SA Matters show by searching SA Matters Radio on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, or Google Play. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel by searching SA Matters TV, all one word, SA Matters TV, on YouTube. You can follow SA Matters page on Facebook, you can follow @Rich Gasaway on Twitter, or you can search Rich Gasaway on LinkedIn. All right, finally, the SA Matters show and SA Matters TV channel has been blessed to enjoy over 800,000 downloads and views, making this show officially the longest running, fastest growing, independently operated, safety focused show on the internet. And I'm looking to add an additional sponsor. So if you know a company that would be interested in advertising their product or service on this show, ask them to contact me through the SA Matters page. Well, that's it. Episode 215 is complete. Thank you to my guest, Chicopee Deputy Fire Chief Dave Beauregard, for sharing your amazing near-miss story. Thank you to our awesome sponsor, Midwest Fire. Thank you to all the companies, agencies, and organizations that have hosted live training events. Thank you to all the organizations that have hosted the virtual, internet-based training events. Thank you to the over 2,000 students and graduates of the acclaimed SA Matters Online Academy. And most importantly, thank you, the listeners and viewers of this show, for sharing some of your valuable time with me. I really appreciate your support of the SA Matters mission. Be safe out there, and may the peace of the Lord and strong situational awareness be with you always.
You've been listening to the Situational Awareness Matters radio show with Dr. Richard B. Gasaway. If you are interested in learning more about situational awareness, human factors, and decision-making under stress, visit SAMatters.com. If you are interested in booking Dr. Gasaway for an upcoming event, visit his personal website at richgasaway.com.